with that? All right, everyone. You okay with recording? We are going. Give it another minute or so for people to pop in.
Oscar, your light keeps switching back and forth. So you're like in the shadow and then you're in the light. There, yeah.
Oh, that's actually just my horrible, horrible soul.
Yeah, you're either completely blacked out or you're completely blown out. So there's no in between with you.
Apparently, this is a feature that only happened on this specific call.
You're like visually bipolar.
Well, that goes hand in hand with my psychological bipolar. Let's.
How are you?
This is the AI content.
No.
Alcohol.
Yeah, this is us. We're just smart asses.
Some of the signs were pointing in different directions, so I had to ask.
That's our fearless leader. That's all.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
It's the adjust for low light feature. Yeah, adjust for low light in Google Meet.
Just for low light. Now you look great.
Yeah, now you look great.
Perfect now. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, except for my horribly greasy skin, it's a different story.
What other than that? But you can just claim, I'm in the tropics, man. What are you going to do?
There's a filter for that.
You get like Snapchat, like beautify thing. No, it's just we've had a heat wave down here for the last 3 weeks, so it's been 90 something every single day, and like
Wait, Oscar,
not a dry.
where are you?
Yeah, where are you?
I'm in the Caribbean. I'm in Costa Rica, about an hour north of Panama,
Oh my
in
God,
a town
amazing.
called Puerto Viejo. That's cool. It's all right. Yeah.
We just need Oscar here so we can say this is an international meeting.
Exactly. There's tax benefits for being more worldly.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get started. Hey, everybody, this is the AI Salon, and I'm here with Leah, co-host Leah.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm doing really good. I'm currently in San Francisco, which is a nice place to be, and it's a nice place to be thinking about AI, and there's a lot happening here, so it's good to be here this week.
That's good. What, are you there on a photo shoot?
I was here for a shoot. I'm also here. I have some unstable housing for the month of May, so I am using it as an opportunity to travel around and see people and do some networking. So
that's cool. And on your photo shoot, you're still using cameras. I thought they were rendered obsolete by AI. That hasn't happened yet.
Still using cameras, and it's exciting to talk to people about what might be possible with all the digital images that we're making as AI is becoming more and more user-friendly for making more images. So ideally, this is going to be a combination of two things: using cameras to make images and then using AI to expand on those images. So.
That's super cool. Did you see our buddies at Adobe, what they released today?
I believe they released the beta Photoshop with Firefly. Is that right?
Yeah, the generative fill. Generative fill is what it's called. Yeah.
Yep. I've been beta testing that. So sometimes when like you're beta testing, it's hard to know when, because I'm beta testing, I get tons of emails from them like all day long. So it was like, oh, email. I'm like, wait, this is a big email. So that is right. It's for it's released for everyone now. Is that right?
I think so. I don't know. I've been traveling for days, so I just know what shows up on Twitter, and half the time it's just vapor announcements. So
it's really fun to play with. If you have Photoshop and you get the update, start playing with it because it really integrates beautifully into Photoshop. And I think that one of the things that I've noticed this year is that there's all these different bits of AI all over the place and all these tools. And I feel like the generative fill within Photoshop starts to integrate it. You start to see how elegant and seamless this is going to be over the next year. It's cool. Check it out. It's interesting to play with, especially if you are in Photoshop organically.
Yeah, what's also fascinating to me is you've got Adobe Firefly, which will generate images and it watermarks everything as this is, AI generated. But then if you do stuff within Photoshop, it's not tagged. And so like if you do 90% of your photo as generated, it's still an original piece. So it's really interesting how all this tagging is going to happen. Because where's the boundary between this is 100% AI versus this is a slight little augmentation to, an image? It doesn't really matter, right?
Well, it starts to get very blurry. And up until today, really, any generation I've done has happened mostly in Stable Diffusion or in Midjourney. And then images that I make with my camera happen in Lightroom and Photoshop. And mixing it all up starts to scramble my head a little bit. Any generations that I've been putting out into the world said this is an image generated by Leah Fasten versus photography. And so we're starting to see all these lines blur. And what does that mean? I'll report back in 2 weeks.
All right, good. All right, great. So anyway, we started out with this is the AI Salon. It's not just a conversation between Leah and I. We actually do things beyond this. Although come for the conversation between Leah and I. Stay for this insulating introduction. So the salon, the purpose of the salon is really just to create a community of people that are curious about AI, encourage them to be adventurous with it, and rather than being disrupted by it, disrupt yourselves in some way and just figure it out and start playing with it. We were created back in December, I think. Lee and I were talking about this AI stuff, and we were like, this could be a thing. Maybe we should, find other people that know more than we do. And that's kind of the idea here. So Leah, why don't you talk? There's probably some new folks here. I know there's some familiar faces, but there's some new folks. Hello. We'll do introductions, but one of the things that I'm excited about this group is kind of the values that we have that kind of emerged naturally of just how we were interacting. And then we decided to kind of codify those values and write them down. So I'll show them here on the screen here locally. And if you could, Leah, if you just sort of review that stuff and let me share. Please. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so our first value is curiosity, which is really where this started from. You and I had a conversation and we're curious and wanted to learn more. That is why we are here. So stay curious about this. Generosity, we're willing to share our knowledge, resources, and feedback with each other and support each other's growth and development. There's so much to learn, we can't possibly keep up. So even if it's not obvious to you, it might not be, or even if it is obvious to you, it might not be to the person next to you. So share what you're learning. Exploration, we are excited to try new things, take risks, and embrace uncertainty and ambiguity. Act as if no one knows what they're doing, because no one actually really does know it. To AI, beginner's mind. We embrace the beginner's mind. Collaboration, we look for opportunities to work with others to exchange ideas and create something greater than ourselves. This is something I'm really excited about this group. We have so many people here from different backgrounds with different expertise. It's really exciting to see what's starting to happen when those intersect. Really excited about that. Inclusion, we actively seek out and value diverse perspectives, experiences, recognizing that our differences make us stronger. This is sort of similar to the collaboration, right? The more backgrounds we come from, the more approaches we take, the more interesting those intersections will be. And empathy. We are mindful of the impact of our work on others, and we strive to create work that is respectful, inclusive, and meaningful. AI is one of the most transformative technological advances in humanity. Humans matter. Take each other in. Act from a place of compassion. I love our values.
I know. They're good. Yay, we're getting celebrations of the values. Yeah. No, and it's funny. Values are one of those things where, when you see like those accessories posters, that people used to hang on their walls, like empathy, it's a thing. Hey there. But it's actually important to. I think it's important. One of the reasons we review them each week is just remind ourselves, why we're here and what we do. Because I think with technology that's moving as fast as AI is right now, it's going to be very easy to get distracted and run down rabbit holes and things like that, and I don't know, get proprietary about stuff, things like that. So and maybe think you have it all figured out. If you think you have it figured out, you don't. No one does. And if anyone tells you they do, they don't.
Actually,
I think the value, I think the thing about AI too is there's so much that I often find like I need focus. Like I can't learn everything there is to learn about AI. I can't approach it in lots of different ways. So the value can help me focus on making decisions and bringing intention to what I am doing. And that's been really helpful.
Perfect. What were you going to say?
oh, I just had an interview the other day where someone asked, we have several AI experts going for this job.
Uh-huh.
And so what's your experience? And I was like, I don't think anyone would claim to be an expert at this point.
Yeah.
It came out less than, well, some of the strengths that we've seen today just came out less than a year ago. So
Yeah.
if someone's claiming to be an expert, I would very much question that.
Yeah. I think there are experts in machine learning, and there are experts
For
that
sure.
have done some of the foundational stuff. But we're talking about the generative AI,
Yeah,
sort of
exactly.
ChatGPT forward. No one's expert at that right now, right? And in fact, our speaker tonight, Adam, really excited to have Adam here. Adam's going to be, talking about, implications to business and how do you transform, and how, with so much change coming so fast, how do you incorporate that, and how do you act like an expert when no one's an expert, right? And disrupt yourself, and what are the implications? So that's going to be really exciting. So why don't we do this? We've got some new people here in Denver. Why don't we start in Denver tonight? And then what we'll do, so what we like to do is do introductions. So Ken Rouse is our community manager and resident timekeeper. So he's on the clock. He'll give you 60 seconds. If you get rambly, he will shut you down. He's relentless. So for those of you online, just raise your hand on those bottom little icons on Google Meet. There's the little one that looks like a hand. Raise your hand, and then Ken will call on you to introduce yourself. And you can do that while we introduce ourselves here in Denver. And you're new. You've been talking. Why don't we start with you, and we'll just go around the table.
Yeah. Is the mic over here?
It's up there, so the mic's
okay.
fine, but I'll try to
Just talk.
Yeah, I'm Tyler Scott, content marketer, strategist, creator. Currently on the job market. I'll just throw that out there. Experience with AI has been a lot of ChatGPT, Bard, Bing AI, and really just playing around with it, attending lots of events like this, and keeping an eye on it on the web, just seeing what's up. How can I use this to really make my job faster, more efficient, and stuff like that. So really excited to just learn and connect with you guys today.
Awesome. What's your background?
Background is marketing, copywriting,
Okay.
all that stuff. So
Cool.
yeah.
And I'm Brad Perkins. Let's see if it recognizes
Yes, exactly.
it. I'm a product designer. Sorry, that was an inside joke. Product designer, and I've really just been kind of playing around with some of the auto GPT, so some of the automation side, and trying to get a crash course in Python so that I at least know what that code looks like and how it's structured, so that I can kind of build some tools around that. So, yeah. That's
That's funny. The little people against my giant head.
right.
That's comical. All right, that's good. It's good though.
All right, I'm one of the figments here. I faded it out.
Oh yeah.
Hang We'll see if we can. There we go. Okay. Hi, I'm Daniel Ritchie. I'm founding member of the Brainwave Collective. My idea is that AI is going to empower all of us to be really productive in a lot of interesting ways.
Get out.
And we're going to need artists. We're going to need designers. We're going to need products. And collectively, we can create some amazing things. So instead of just learning and going off into the world and doing fun stuff, why don't we have an ownership stake, some equity in what we create, and see what we can come up with. So my idea is something in between founding and joining a company. You're going to join a collective. I actually am going to pitch this to some investors, because we can take investors as members in addition to companies as members beyond individuals. So I'm going to join. I'm going to switch over to joining online, and hopefully can join you all at Zeppelin Station afterwards. We'll see how things go.
Great.
And I'll drop a link in the chat.
Okay, great.
My name is Des Alvarado. Let's see if it registers.
There's your hand. There you are.
Oh,
Very
so
nice.
tiny.
He's the beard man.
Yes. So I am a media director. That means for my team, I basically make a lot of video content. for Spectrum, which is an internet cable company. So we're a large, massive company, and we're slowly starting to incorporate AI apps and technology into video production, and it's going to be a very impactful thing. Already is. It's going to be huge in what I do, and it's going to, I think, already is changing the workflow process. Hopefully, it'll help people become or spend more time being creative than doing all the little things that take forever, like transcribing things and tagging and metadata. So Eric actually introduced me to this group, and very curious to learn what you guys all have to say.
Cool. Welcome.
Thank you.
So did I step in at the exact right time?
Yeah.
Perfect
The
timing.
perfect It's all about you. Wait, let's see. Can we get you there? Yeah, you're there. You're there.
All right.
Hey there.
There he goes.
Eric. I have an immersive arts company, so we combine technology and cutting-edge technology and traditional art forms. Really, primarily just super interested in technology. Been kind of looking at the AI space for a little while now, and just here to sort of be able to passively keep up with what's happening in the space. We're super busy with our first build, so not having to proactively search stuff out is super helpful.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
My name is Jane. I have been coming to these for a couple months. I'm also an organizer, and I use ChatGPT every day basically to do my job. And every week, pushing it more and more. And it's it just makes my head spin. So I'm really happy to be here.
I'm John. I'm the maintenance man of this building that we're at. I also am creating a AI-based mentorship type app called Maintenance Mentor for people like me. Question about AV or something you're not familiar with. Also, it's going to be for study guides for certifications for folks like me. So,
Yep.
Good to see you.
Yeah, that's really cool. And actually, we used Maintenance Mentor, a week and a half ago. We had an AV issue here at Catalyst, and Maintenance Mentor, an AI bot actually helps solve our problem.
Yeah, at least figure out what was
Yeah,
going on.
yeah, exactly. So,
Hello, everybody. My name is Kasim. I'm a software architect. I really develop software for Apple operating system or iOS and macOS. I've spent the last 3 years doing specifically machine learning by utilizing the automatic speech recognition systems and developing models from scratch to understand different languages and different terminologies that based on the industry, whether it's like medical, construction, architecture, etc. So I'm very interested to be with you here guys today because I'm hopefully now shifting to video creation tools by dedicating time to create an open source application that allows content creation to create AI and machine learning powered application by creating and editing videos on the machine, not on the cloud.
oh, cool.
Nice.
So it's
Oh, that's
very
exciting.
I'd like to talk to you after.
Yeah, that's great. Let me see if I can spin this without unplugging everything.
Oh, look.
It's you.
Hi.
Yeah, Drea's a dancer. She's got a ready.
That's it.
That's all of your work.
My name is Drea Kufkin, and I am actually an organizer here at the AI Salon. My title is Generative Architect, which is sort of answering the question of how can we use generative AI to build an organization, to speed up our workflows, things like that. How do we, most importantly, how do we use generative AI to bring people together, to build community, to accentuate our very human qualities rather than trying to match this sort of cultural MIDI and turn ourselves into bland robots. Chief dystopia avoider, perhaps. I've been a professional writer for a long time, but I'm working on launching a mental health startup that uses virtualization and gaming for trauma-informed therapy. There is an AI component, but when we match trauma-informed and AI or attempt to, it can get messy. So I think to your point of building custom sort of models from scratch, that'll be really interesting when the time is right. So nice to meet everybody.
Well, all right, that's the Denver crew here. So online, if you haven't raised your hand, and Ken will call on you in order. You have 60 seconds. We want to hear from you, who you are, especially if you're new here. Do not hide. Be generous with your, I don't know, vulnerability. Get all Brene Brown on us.
Yeah, we've got a lot of hands raised, and we are going to start with Austin Delamere. You're up.
Hey everybody, Austin Delamar. This is my second time at one of these meetings, but my first time kind of introducing myself. I'm a freelance motion design artist and doing this for a while. And it's been really cool seeing AI and trying to figure out how to incorporate that into my workflow. So producing higher quality content for clients, using it for ideation, and basically trying to plug it into every aspect of the production pipeline. So yeah, just here to learn and kind of hear about all the cool tools that you guys are using and coming across and sharing some things that I find as well. So I'm excited.
All right, thanks. Welcome. Oscar Aird, you're up.
Hey everybody, my name is Oscar. I'm the principal at Coherent Ways, a design business system technology consultancy, doing a pivot right now towards AI. Been studying it for a while. Main thrust, in all honesty, is to try to find the solutions that help people integrate with AI to achieve their purpose. That might be the best way of voicing it. So most recently, I've been spending a lot of time just talking one-on-one with people and like online and trying to figure out what it is that they're trying to accomplish and what it is that's out there that helps them to actually, link to those 2 points and to try to very carefully affirm the fact that we need to augment our abilities with these tools and not let them be the justification for making us redundant as professionals, as people, as creatives. So I'm always interested in learning more about what other people are doing and trying to resynthesize the information to elevate that conversation and hopefully make a bunch of money so I can get out of the rat race eventually. But the noble stuff first.
That's awesome. I think of I've been thinking of when I see AI done right, when people are doing it right, it feels like a humanity amplifier. So it feels like what you're up to there, Oscar, is really important. So kudos.
All right, thanks, Oscar. Elijah Johnson, you're up next.
Hey guys, this is Elijah. I am head of U.S. engineering at a brokerage trading platform called eToro. I'm looking to kind of understand some of the things for my developers, the tools they can use, ways to kind of improve efficiency, especially kind of during a hiring freeze, trying to figure out ways we can be more productive. But in the meantime, I'm also pursuing a master's degree in computer science with some machine learning classes. And then outside of that, just a curious human wanted to learn more generative AI tools. So,
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Jeff Gray, you're up next.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Gray. To put it bluntly, I'm an apparel guy. I know nothing about technology, and I'm actually throwing myself in the last 6 months to figure out how I can, blend my apparel background and AI. And recently I just started up a new company called RoboArt Labs, where I'm going to be taking AI art and printing it on physical products. So it's going to be an app that people will be able to get for their websites and allow their websites to have AI art generation and printing, international printing on demand. So that's what I'm doing.
All right, great. Thanks, Jeff. Cindy Hugh, you're up.
Hi everyone, my name is Cindy and I just finished my bachelor degree. I just finished my bachelor degree in statistics and economics and data science. And right now I'm joining a life insurance company as an actuary. And I'm very curious about how my data science background can be integrated into life insurance data, because research shows that only 10% of the insurance data are being actively used. So I'm really interested in figuring out how machine learning, artificial intelligence can or how machine learning and artificial intelligence can help with figuring out the patterns in the unused data. And in the meantime, I'm also pursuing master program in data science and the field branch, including deep learning, optimization, reinforcement learning. And I'm really interested to see all the applications of AI too. So that's about me. Thank you.
Great. Well, welcome.
Wow.
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. Welcome.
Cindy, if you don't know about it yet, check out a thing from OpenAI from ChatGPT. There's a new sort of mode that's coming out called Code Interpreter, which will totally, if you don't know about it, check it out. Code Interpreter. It's not out for everyone yet, but in terms of data analytics and statistics, it looks like it's a remarkable tool.
Yes,
Is
I
there?
heard that. I heard
Yeah.
that ChatGPT can write pretty good code, and usually the code is better than mine. So
it's certainly faster, and yeah, it can be. GPT-4 is particularly good.
All right, thanks, Cindy. Eric Sanner, you're up next.
Good evening, everyone. I was an artist for a long time. My background is a digital piece that I made from a lottery ticket. So every lottery ticket has a different set of numbers and graphics on it. And so a lot of the work I was doing would have benefited from a very smart computer. I did that in Illustrator and Photoshop, right? Just taking pictures and then saying, oh, I'm going to multiply this little squiggle on this lottery ticket 10,000 times and arrange it in a radius. So that was exciting. And now AI can actually do all these things that I didn't have time for. So that is extremely exciting. And I've just been studying UX design as hard as I can, because I've been hearing, like I have a lawyer friend who's like, yeah, AI just writes the contract, but I have to proof it and make sure that the contract is the real thing. And I don't have these UX background skills to tell it what to do and then know if it's actually good or not. So I want to learn all the good or not stuff. And then I can work with the AI together, hopefully, to improve some people's lives if possible. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Eric. Welcome. Camille, you're up next.
Hey, my name's I have been playing around with ChatGPT and Midjourney for months now, just to kind of have fun with it and expand my own curiosity and creativity. And I've been talking about it a lot for the last few months with my friends, and kind of stumbled into a consulting gig over the last couple of weeks with a tutoring company that wants to train their employees on it to just kind of improve their productivity. So I'm figuring it out as I go, and I guess I'm trying to pretend like I'm an expert at this stage and see how it goes. So I'm just taking it one step at a time.
Nice guitars.
Thanks.
All right. Looks like Drew Wilkins, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. Great group. Learn a lot every time I listen in. I run a marketing consultancy, doing marketing communications and innovation in the New York City area. And I'm pivoting it, the business along with myself, to focus on AI, particularly no-code AI. It feels pretty interesting to me, like it's more accessible to regular business people. We know there's a shortage of tech people, and it kind of feels like the AI equivalent of desktop publishing, if you guys remember that revolution long ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
I finished up an MIT program on AI, and so I kind of understand some of the foundational stuff, which was amazing. And now I'm trying to figure out, where to take the opportunities. And one that came to me, I volunteer. This is one that Kyle doesn't know. I volunteer for the Coast Guard, which I've done for about 15 years. And they caught wind of the AI stuff I'd been working on and asked me to provide some leadership to a translation project, speech language detection without internet access, running on a mobile device. And they have two vendors doing this, and literally the technology doesn't exist. So large learning models in handheld runtime edge devices. So that's cool. And so I'm here.
That's super cool. That's super cool.
Awesome.
Also,
Cool.
check out if you haven't the Zapier plugin for ChatGPT. You can just describe it and it'll write a Zap for you. And then I also they just built it into Zapier itself, where there's now an AI window within Zapier. So you can just describe the automations you want, and it automatically puts them together. So that's super cool, too.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. Welcome. Lee Chazen, you're up next.
Yes, that's me. Thank you. And good to be here, everyone. I was here for the final 20 minutes last time. I got my timing. I got my timing wrong, and but you were kind enough to have me introduce myself then. I'll just give you a quick update from where I was last time. So I had just come off the prompt engineering and ChatGPT podcast, and I didn't realize, for anyone who's afraid of doing a podcast but wants to get the word up, do it, because I got more, in my inbox than I would have with 3 months of just sending messages out to people. Because, we're venturing into something new here, and you have to kind of establish yourself as a quote unquote expert. I've got a little bit of the Dunning-Kruger thing going on where, like, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know about something. And so it can affect your confidence when you're just like overwhelmed, but you have to be, assertive about it. So as of today, my third prompt got approved on prompt base. And if you recall from last time, that means students and teachers running this game that I call Global Challenge, which I invented back when I was teaching, can be run on 3 ChatGPT prompts. One produces the rule book, one gives this table that includes all the countries on Earth, and facts and information about every single country. Like you hit continue 25 times and it generates this massive table. And then the third one, wow.
All right, Lee,
Yeah,
we've got to leave it there.
Oh, out of time. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. But anyway, just it's working, and I'm here to learn as much as possible.
Welcome. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
George Williams, you're up next.
Cool. Hey, everybody. My name is George Williams. I am based in Washington, D.C. Sorry for not being on camera. I am just finishing working out, so no one wants to see that. I work in the government as a press secretary, so I actually have been using mainly ChatGPT, but a little bit of Bard to do some of the things like figuring out composites, using it more as sort of a brainstorming partner, as well as a quick way of making sure that when I write stuff with the web integrations, that it has things like the Associated Press style book guidelines quickly done, or critiquing releases to make sure that I'm not missing any big ideas. So I've sort of done that, as well as played around with a few things on LinkedIn Learning. Because what I'm interested in now is making potentially a career pivot into the strategic comms or public policy comms space with data to AI, because I've done government work because I'm in DC, and I figure it's a pretty easy pivot in terms of location.
Fantastic.
All right, great.
Wonderful.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Appreciate it, George.
And also, great voice. Like, I think it's good that you're off camera. It's just like you're this booming voice in the void.
I don't want to eat up the time. The one thing I don't like about AI is that one of my side gigs was I was doing voiceover work, and that is slowly being eroded because of AI.
I think voiceover work is in serious trouble. So
clone your voice and sell it.
Yeah, but yeah, clone your voice and sell it. I think that is going to be a market. But yeah, I think anyway, kudos on the good voice, and I feel your pain on the voiceover stuff.
All right, we got a few more to get through here. Eric Rowland, you're up next.
Hey, so I just wanted to see if anybody, like, I'm working on 2 things. One, I'm working with a geneticist to automate scientific research. So I'm extracting like genetic information from our new studies out of research papers, but I'm also extracting the math. So if anybody has a lot of experience with like working, with like theoretical math or wants to talk about that, that would be awesome. And then secondly, I'm doing some sales pipeline automation work. So if you want to talk about sales pipelines or genetic research or just like higher level math, love to have discussion about it.
Great. Welcome,
Oh,
Eric.
really interesting. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric. Hannah C., you're up next.
Hi, my name's Hannah. My background is in mental health and some research, and I'm coming to this group because I can tell that AI will help us create more efficient systems and more productivity, especially in the public service space. I just have to figure out how to draw those connections. So I'm glad to be here.
Welcome.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Nice to have you here.
Good to have you, Hannah. Thanks. Welcome. Bruce Rassa, you're up next.
Hey, everybody. Bruce from Kansas City. I've been here a couple times this spring. It's always been fascinating and useful. So I'm a speech tech entrepreneur. We focus on the industrial sector for basically deskless workers doing hands-free data capture. I'm actually extra excited about tonight's topic with Adam and the AI business models. So the reason is I just won a $2,000 contract to lead an AI workshop for an hour to train 80 execs on the business impact of AI. The challenge is in picking the tools, I want to pick some that have some form of reuse when I orchestrate them together, which is kind of nuts since they're announcing at a crushing speed daily. So anyway, excited to listen and learn. Great group.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think so long as you're in the mode of anything I build today will be obsolete next week, as long as you're in that mindset, I think you'll be fine.
Welcome, Bruce. Good to have you here. Anybody else that just joined, go ahead and raise your hand digitally, and we will get you an introduction.
I also want to read. There's a from chat here. Hi, my name's Lima, and I'm an AI addict. Lima's apparently in a noisy environment, so can't talk. But welcome. And this does feel a bit like an AI support group. So I assume it will be less like that over time. But it is, I still get weird looks when people, I mention AI. People are like, oh God, here we go. Yeah.
All right. Looks like Doug, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Doug, also from Kansas City, and actually I just gave I was part of a 3-hour workshop at the Polsinelli law firm, and we talked about entrepreneurship in AI, and so that was really good. There was about 40 people at that event. Tomorrow, actually, I'm the VR AR Kansas City chapter president, and we're having there's a 3-hour event. 1,000 people are going to be attending virtually. And I'm gonna have a panel of 4 people from Accenture, Nokia, to talk about VR and AI as well. So I'm excited about what's going on in VR and Bruce. Yeah, maybe you and I can get together to talk about the potential tools.
I will, but you just got to serve beer afterward, like Kyle does. So then.
Okay. Okay.
It really doesn't serve me. It's not to pay for it.
Thanks, Doug. Good to have you here. DB, you're up next. Oh, you're muted.
You're still muted. Oh,
can we have AI automate your muting, like just that comment?
Let's see, can I unmute him?
You're
You're
still
still
muted.
muted.
I can't. Still muted, DB.
All right, yeah, you might need to change your permissions and hop out and hop back in, DB.
All right. While he's doing that, we'll move on to Becky Cooperman.
Hey, everybody. So glad to be here again. I'm Becky Cooperman. I work in strategic foresight and strategy consulting. And so I am using AI to help envision futures and scenarios around them, to identify biases in them, and to help others pick and choose the types of people and scenarios that they want to envision in different scenarios. So far, it's been really fun.
Great.
Wow. Cool. So cool, Rebecca. Welcome.
Good to have you here, Becky. DB, are you ready to go? You're up next, DB.
Your mic's still off, DB.
AI Salon technical support. How can I help you?
Somebody else find funny with a DB in the Cooper's.
Oh yeah, DB. Yeah, we were Cooperman and a DB. That's good. All right, we'll get back to DB. I think DB was the last one to introduce himself. I mean, one thing that strikes me about the introductions tonight, I think we're in the middle of a shift, which is I think 4 or 5 people tonight said they've taught, an AI workshop. They're hired for one. They're speaking on a panel. Like there's a definite shift in members doing that. I just came from speaking on a panel for a bunch of military simulation people, and I'm kind of seeing increased interest. It's not just sort of a side glance anymore. So my instinct has been that we're going to enter a phase where people and companies are like, holy crap, we got to figure this AI stuff out. And to your point, anyone who's like, I used ChatGPT once. Okay, you're the VP of AI. Come on in. I think we're entering that mode. So I just wanted to point that out because I think it's kind of a big deal.
I think I also noticed tonight there's a lot of people who are doing things with AI versus 3 or 4 months ago where people were interested in learning about AI. And that was here. It's neat to hear that too.
I don't know why I'm here, but I'm here, and now it's a much more focused thing. So that's good. I mean, that's just a positive sign that we're entering the 6 months old as an industry, where things are starting to coalesce.
Back when we launched 6 months ago.
Yeah. So there's 2 news items that I want to bring up. One, I'm just going to do something really stupid. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to watch a video together. So it's going to be like elementary school.
Grab our popcorn. I love it.
But I think it's an important one. So let me share my screen and pop something up here. So there's this thing called. What's that?
I'm thinking about the old PSAs from like school, like don't be a Mr. Bungle and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Windows Copilot. So Windows or Microsoft today announced Copilot for Windows. And I just want to watch the video together because I haven't seen it. I was traveling today.
Is there supposed to be audio with this?
Yeah, it's just music stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So interesting. I've been a Microsoft hater all my life, but I continue to be impressed with them, how quickly they're moving and how sophisticated it is. What felt significant to me about that is just that these large language models, they essentially can augment every piece of software, right? And I just think they're just going to become this kind of ubiquitous layer, kind of like internet protocol that are just sitting on top of things. And the fact that you can take something as complicated as Windows and just say, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? And it just figures it out for you. Sort of the decomplexification. I don't think that's a word, but I just invented it. Simplifying might be another way to say that. Simplifying these really complex systems is something that I think is super exciting. So that was that one. The other thing I wanted to share, another share. Well, let me just pause for a second. I'm just curious, what anyone's thoughts are on that, and if they think that's exciting as well.
The GitHub is owned by Microsoft. So
Yeah.
they do have something called Code Pilot.
Yeah.
It's already there.
Yeah, but they're taking that branding, the Copilot branding, and they're rolling it across everything. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
There's nothing surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's good. The only maybe surprising thing is where's Apple on this, but I assume we'll hear from them soon.
They missed a great opportunity to bring Clippy back. I mean, just
Clippy 2.0.
just or have some logo in the.
Yeah, we need Clippy 2.0 because now Clippy could not suck, you know?
Yeah, I think
They can roll out
every time we
Microsoft
start
Bob
seeing,
Walker
Oh, wait, sorry. You know what? The other, just if you want to comment on it, please, want you to comment, just raise your hand and then Ken will call you on you so we're not talking over each other because the asynchronous stuff is hard. So just raise your hand if you want to say something on it. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Looks like Austin, you're first.
yeah, so I was just gonna say that I think every time we start seeing AI integrated into a software, it just feels cleaner and it feels, I don't know, it's just nice to have it so available. Like this morning playing around with Firefly integrated into Photoshop. It's just cool having it, you know, not as a separate kind of its own thing, but now being part of the system that we're familiar with, and then now helping that just become better than it was before. So I think it's cool.
Yep. Yep.
All right, Oscar, do you have something you want to add?
I think it's a step in the right direction. I think that things like Firefly, for example, that's going to help streamline the normalization of AI. But at the same time, I can absolutely see a lot of tech people who maybe have spent the last 30 years being technocrats, freaking the hell out because their ability to like make money by clicking on the settings in Microsoft Windows, that might go out the window pretty quickly.
Yep. Yep, for sure. The disruption, she will run deep. Cool. Okay, so let me show you one other thing, and this is really just more like a public service announcement, and because I haven't played a ton with it, but last week Anthropic introduced or announced Claude 100K, and which is their 100,000 token chatbot. So let me clear my context here. So what that means is 100,000 tokens translates roughly to 75,000 words. So in your prompt window, you can paste up to 75,000 words, right? Which is like a full novel. So you could paste in a full novel and say, rewrite this as a children's story or whatever. Write an epilogue, write the first chapter, write the last chapter, rewrite chapter 7.
Write a rap song.
Write a rap song, yeah, exactly. Yeah, based on the novel. Or make my novel suck less, right? Turn this into the great American novel versus whatever the hell I wrote. And so if you pay for Poe, this is not an ad for Poe, but if you pay for Poe, you can access GPT-4 and you can access this 100,000 token version. So just to do a quick little demo, this is one of our transcripts from last week's meeting, and it's 56 pages long. So it's significantly longer than what you can paste into ChatGPT. But I can just paste this in. Oh wait, let me get rid of it actually and say, based on this transcript, and then paste, and then this is, I'll just scroll, like this is long. You can see the little, am I sharing my screen? Yeah. Okay, great. You know, this is long document. So based on that transcript, let's see. Write an M rap about the main topics that were discussed. There you go, Jake. Oops. And so it's taken in 56 pages of data, and let's see what it does. This, I'm sure it will fail miserably because that's the state of the industry we're in.
Or you could take this to the streets with you.
All right. Let's see. Yo, check it out. Yeah, AI is taking over the game. Models spitting images like the illustrate. I won't read this because I'm thank God. Yeah, but
no, please do, Kyle.
No. I will spare you all that. But anyway, like this is particularly exciting if you've been frustrated by, I've got a document that's too long, like all of a sudden you can now like put the full screenplay you've written or whatever and just start interacting with it. So I just wanted to share that because it's just, I don't know. I find it mind blowing that we're living in a time in history where like just the world is opening up before us. So it's wild, huh?
Yeah, it's mind blowing. It's totally mind blowing. I have a question about the difference between, because I haven't used the chat, any of the plugins for OpenAI yet. I haven't gotten that access. How is that different than what you just showed us, or how is your experience different between the two?
So I can show you, and you do have access, but you have to be a ChatGPT Plus member.
Yeah, I am. I don't.
Okay,
I don't know how
so
to-
I'll show you. I will show you. Leave
Okay,
me
thank
show
you.
you.
Yeah, rollout hasn't been complete yet.
Okay, it
So-
hasn't. Yeah. Okay.
So if you're in ChatGPT, you go to settings, and then there's a thing called beta features, and you have plugins and web browsing. You can turn both of those on. So you have to explicitly turn them on, and then up at the. Let me just confirm. I'm sharing my window, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. You can do ChatGPT 3.5, which is super fast, or for ChatGPT 4, there's 3 modes now. I mentioned before about Code Interpreter. When that releases, that will be another one of these modes. But right now you've got default, which is GPT-4 as it was. You've got browsing, so I can say, why is it so smoky in Denver? And so that will fire up. That's essentially firing up a plugin that goes and searches for that thing. It determined it needed to go search the web. And so it searched the Denver Post. It says it's thinking. It said it's reading content. And now it says Denver is currently experiencing conditions due to wildfires in Alberta, Canada. So that's the web browsing. The way the plugins work is when you switch to plugins mode, you have this little drop-down menu. And the list of plugins I have here, these are the ones I have installed. So if you don't have any installed, you'll have a list to the plugin store. So if I go to the plugin store, there are now, where are they? Oh, I have to say all. So there are now 32 times 4, 128. Is that right? 128 plugins available. So you can literally just, this is funny. We're so early. You can't search for a plugin. There's 128 of them. So you can go page by page to the next plugins, and then basically you install them. And then once they're installed, they show up in this little list here. And you can enable up to 3 of them at a time. So like here's one that's like chat with PDF, where you can upload a PDF. There's creature generator, which I tried before, and it's really bad. I think it's based on DALL-E. It's really crappy. But I just saw TikTok the other day. There's a new image one that actually does calls to Midjourney. But anyway, so you enable the plugins. So there's Kayak will enable Open Table. We'll just do those 2. So I'll say, make me reservations for a trip to Norfolk, Virginia. That's where I just came from. And a nice steak dinner tomorrow night. And then what it should do is it should interpret that, and it didn't, of course. Wait, did I enable those? Yeah, I did. Yeah. Enable plugins. Can you book a flight leaving tomorrow morning? Kayak does. Yeah. So now it recognized to book a flight I need Kayak, and so I can kind of open this and see what it's doing. So you can see what it actually does is kind of write some code. So origin, New York. It thinks I'm in New York. So that I'd have to fix. But then here's the response from Kayak. And so, here's my flights. It's automatically hyperlinking them, things like that. So I'll stop generating that. Book me a dinner at the, near the Hilton. Names. That should, there it's popping open table. So basically you turn on one to three of these plugins, and what you're effectively doing is you're creating like a little mini application using some combination of these plugins. And the thing about the plugins right now is they're super janky and they're super early and they don't work half the time. But when they work, you're like, oh, holy crap. Like, it's just like the combination of what you can put together, like it's just going to allow us to create just kind of an infinite number of apps that are super customized. And I think a lot of the startups that we'll see will essentially be variations of, hooking things together. I heard someone was describing kind of the future of ChatGPT and OpenAI is that ChatGPT is going to effectively turn into what they described as the everything app, where you literally just say, I want to do this, and it will kind of dynamically figure out either what services it needs to call or what code it needs to write, and it will write it on the fly and just give you what you need, right? So if you sort of play this out 3 or 4 years down the line, and maybe sooner than that, this gets really sophisticated.
Looks like we have a question from Jane.
Yeah. No, I just had a general comment kind of going back to the M&M wrap. I know it seems like really kitschy and it's stupid, but like the fact that there's a tool that can even do it, it's changing. Anyone out there in this audience who's like a writer and been using this, like, how it's changing the craft itself. And like, that's kind of just what's made my head spin for the past 3 months. Is the way that I learned how to write is extinct. It's done for.
Does it give you sort of a new creative voice because it can do so much?
Kind of. I'm still figuring it out. It does get rid of the redundancies. I think someone mentioned it of just like the little tasks, the kind of just the mind grinding stuff. I'm optimistic. I think it's going to free up creativity even more. I don't think it's going to kill creativity. I think it's going to be completely the opposite. Even if you just think about this plugin that you just used, like how much time does that save you on Google? Like all the things that you just did would take 3 hours on Google.
Yeah.
And so now what are you doing with that 3 hours?
I totally, exactly.
Like imagine if you just had an extra 3 hours in your day, like that's not nothing.
Yep.
So, you just said it's kind of glitchy, but just the fact that it's there, in 6 months, it won't be glitchy.
Yeah.
So
I'm wondering. Go ahead.
Yeah, we got another one here.
I'm wondering if this creates a shift in personal data ownership too, because the problem that I see right there, and it could easily overcome, is that we're, for the last forever, we've relied on each individual app we've interacted with to know us or learn us, and each one storing segments of things about us. And that's the only thing they know about us. And they've been using that to sell us products and all that kind of stuff. But I'm wondering if this creates a shift into your account on OpenAI is what knows you best, and you have rights to that. And then everything then just becomes APIs and plugins.
I think
and accessing that personal data that you own. Because I know Europe is forcing that to go that direction. That we'll be creating individual AI tools for us that learn us, so that then when you say, hey, I just want to steak dinner, it can just go fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't rely on open table to know you. it's your own personal AI model that knows.
I think it's absolutely where we're heading. I think Apple could be a major player in this. I think they're missing the boat if they don't sort of lean in heavy into the personal agent market. Lots of questions.
Yeah, we got a few hands raised here. George Williams, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I think even sort of following up on that previous comment, what I can see happening is the same way that you have the personal agent kind of model, that in one sense could potentially shield someone's personal data because it's not my real self, it becomes sort of my avatar. So it may not know all the details of me, but the details for which I wanted to know. There's I forgot to mention in the intro, I'm also a copyright lawyer, an attorney. So part of it is I'm looking at it from the viewpoint of there are questions about if someone sells their voice, if someone buys my voice and they have a voice recording of me confessing to crimes, how does that change the rules of evidence? How does it change copyrights? How does it change a variety of things? So I think the idea of there being this personal kind of sort of virtual agent that doesn't have all of a person, but enough of the person to shield their real identity is probably where I can see things moving.
Yeah, interesting.
Wow. Yeah.
Thanks for that. George, Oscar, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, thanks. I think that we're still operating in a, I don't want to say capitalistic model, but all of these wonderful tools are operating at a huge loss. Microsoft threw $10 billion at OpenAI and they're running in the red big time. No one is making a profit off this stuff yet. And the idea of your digital twin, your personal avatar, that does open up all kinds of interesting questions because Facebook sells your information. Microsoft has been, they've all been, brokering information since Jump and before that when it came to credit cards and stuff. So no one, as far as I can tell, has figured out how to make this operate without running at a loss. And they're proving the case that this does transform the space, but it's still, they're bleeding money like stuffed pigs. So privacy is going to remain a huge concern. And don't trust anyone that says that like they're operating in our best interest. Like this is amazing. This is transformative, but it's transformative in a way where they want to recondition us to work in a different way through their context. So
very good point. Appreciate it, Oscar. HT Snowday, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, and I'll riff on Oscar there too. The pragmatic example I've been using, and it's something both powerful and concerning, is you look at the Copilot release from Microsoft, you wouldn't have historically considered allowing Microsoft to look at an Excel document related to your business. But if you run a personal graph to automate functions with a model across Windows, you're effectively doing that because the model has to have access to your data in a way to make it contextual with what you're asking it to do. So it'll be interesting to see how that gets handled. There's going to be a lot of balanced trust economy happening, but to your point, Oscar, yeah, you'll gain dramatic efficiency, somewhat potentially at the expense of a dramatic release of information about what you're doing.
Yeah,
and it's not clear to me how Copilot handles that right now.
Yeah, well, I've had no illusions that everything I write in Google Docs is being mined and used against me
Good point.
for a decade now. So I think this just makes it a bit more explicit.
I appreciated what George said about personal, our own personal avatars, and we start to split ourselves into different data personalities, and some of those personalities with certain amounts of access so that we can use the AI, but then other personalities and other versions we can protect. Appreciate that.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. Yeah, and I think the point of having a licensable agent that think about if you're a physical therapist or you're a voice actor or whatever it is, and you can create something where you can effectively scale your talents and let people access what you do and maybe an expanded version of yourself. And that might just be a specific thing you put together almost like a little business and kind of turn loose on the world. So really interesting stuff. So with that, I think that's actually a perfect tee up to introduce Adam. I think I'm going to turn it over to Drea. Since you brought Adam to us, I'm really excited to introduce you, Adam. And Drea, why don't you take it away and
Sure. Is there a camera that should be pointed at my face?
Oh, yes, there is. Wait, don't you have to do, wait, I need to, hang on, I need to pin. Hold on, hold please. All right, and then, there you go. Then we need to do the dancing. There you go, okay, perfect.
Well, I just want to, here's Adam's book, everybody. It's the business model book. And I have to say, you know, I've been a professional writer for a long time, and I probably read, I don't know, more than 70 books a year, mostly nonfiction. And it's really hard to put together a book that you can go through chapter by chapter and gain real life knowledge as you go. Workable knowledge that can be applied right now. And Adam and his co-author, George, who's not here today, have managed to do that in this book. And the book has a corresponding website where you can do exercises. And I just, you know, as I sort of got into entrepreneurship, I realized I didn't know what the hell I was doing, so I got into books. And this one, I think, but by going through it, I gained more sort of real life knowledge than in anything else I've read. So I reached out to Adam, and he was pretty quick to tell me, look, I'm not an AI expert, but I'm like, but you're a business model expert. This is so clutch. Thanks, Tom. So I'm very excited to have you here today, Adam, and thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, did you want to say anything else? Should I just jump in? How do you want to do this here?
This is all you go for
All
it.
right.
And yeah, no, I'm really, really excited to have you here, and so much appreciate you, sharing your wisdom with the group.
Sure. Well, I'm very grateful for Drea's introduction and the kind words about the book. I will give you a warning that if you do go to the website, you'll discover we're not doing upkeep on the website anymore. The book was published in 2018, and we kept the website updated roughly through the start of the pandemic, and then that was frankly when the royalties ran out. So most of the website works, but not all of it. So if you do, for whatever reason, want to check it out and you can't access a specific file or a template, there's like 25 worksheets basically to like think about business models. And if for whatever reason you're having a problem, you can always just reach out to me directly. So regardless, thank you for the opportunity to chat with everyone. This is a very cool conversation. I love the fact that it's a salon. I read a lot of old English literature, and I've always loved the idea of the salon of ideas, people just getting together to have the conversation. So that was very cool. I did tell Drea I have no real experience with AI. I will tell you, I will take a moment just to kind of share a little of my background. So I am technically an academic. I like to joke that I write books and papers that no one reads, although it turns out Drea has read my book. I teach entrepreneurship at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I do publish on things like business models, angel investing, and tech entrepreneurship. I do a couple of other things. I do executive education for a variety of different organizations, regional, national, and international companies. So current clients, Japanese multinational microelectronics company. I spent 2 years doing business model work with the Dubai Chamber of Commerce. I'm currently working with a couple of national insurance carriers in the United States, some of which is touching very tangentially on AI in the context of innovation. And then I am an entrepreneur. I'm the co-founder, and I served as an executive at 4 life science companies, biotech companies spun out of university research. 2 of those have exited already. 2 are still out there. And I am the lead executive in residence in the biotech sector for the University of Minnesota's Tech Transfer Office. Yeah, I'll put and yes, we can put the book. I've got the Amazon link to the book, and the website is just bizmodelbook.com. Or bizmodelbook.com. So I'll throw that into chat as well in just a bit. So my caveats are, I'm not an AI expert. I do actually have a little bit of coding background a long time ago. And then for some of my research work, I ended up doing some Monte Carlo simulation stuff. So, I mean, I'm at least familiar with the concept of coding and software.
and some of my angel networks invested in some tech, into some software companies, but I really have no depth on AI or generative AI other than my philosophical interest in, reading sci-fi books. Happy to chat about that if it turns out to be interesting. The idea for what I'm going to talk about here is that maybe it's helpful to think a little bit about AI from a business model perspective. And in some ways, I worry that that's like the boring, depressing side of it. So I don't mean to be a downer on the salon. I will try to make this interesting. And I won't take long. I think the team suggested an amount of time to present, and I said, there's no way I'm going to talk for that long, and I'm not going to use a deck. So let's be clear about that. So here's my proposition to you, which we can talk about once I finish. And I do have a couple things I'm going to say, and then I will open it all up. But here's sort of the core thing I'm going to ask you to consider. Innovations, generally speaking, okay? Innovations are adopted because they solve a problem, and in particular because they tend to solve an economic problem. The corollary to that statement is that innovations are not adopted on their own simply because they're new or even because they're better than what we currently have, okay? And so here's the thing. For the rest of what we're going to talk about here, if you don't buy that, like if you are under the impression that innovations are adopted simply because they're new, they're cool, or even just because they're better than what's available, then the rest of what I talk about is not going to make any sense. And I will cheerfully argue with you about this later and explain to you why this is what we know about innovation. But I think to really think about AI and what's going to happen and how it's going to impact your jobs and other people's jobs and where you're going to see, adoption and people making money, you have to recognize that it's not just because it's new, it's not just because it's cool, and it's not even just because it's better than what's available. It's unfortunately much more subtle and complicated than that. So here's what I'm going to try to now talk about. I've got 3 little sections. So the first one is I want to encourage you to step back and not focus on the features of what the AI is capable of, okay? I'm going to suggest that you have to actually turn it around completely and think about the characteristics of opportunities or business models where that economic value is more likely to be realized. And I'll kind of walk you through some of what I think are some of the characteristics that are relevant. After that, I'm then going to say, okay, if you take that as reasonable, that those are some of the characteristics of opportunities or business models where we're likely to see AI make inroads, then here are some of the opportunities I think that this leads to, some of the examples. And then I'm going to talk about where I think you're not as likely to see it, because there are other factors, in particular institutional factors, that are likely to limit it, at least based on what we know now. So that's all I'm going to try to walk through. It's probably only going to take about 5 more minutes, so you only have to listen to me for a little longer. And then I am happy to try to answer questions. I am happy to tell stories about startup companies. I am happy to, describe some of the innovation stuff that, and how I'm trying to help companies think about that. Or for the salon, just have a broader conversation. And I am very happy to just sit back and listen as well. So I want to start with this issue of thinking around characteristics of opportunities, right? So put aside the features of AI, put aside what ChatGPT or Bard or any of them can do at the moment, and let's think about what are the specific applications or problem, what are the characteristics of the opportunities that lend themselves to being addressed with AI. So let's not start with, we can get it to do plane reservations. Let's think about what it is behind the scenes about how people behave and how organizations work that result in that being, a potential application, and whether we think that that's likely to be a successful use or application. So I came up with seven factors And this, let me be very clear, this is not published research. This is just Adam sitting in a room, in some cases with a beer, thinking about this stuff. So I put these into chat right now so you have them. Although I can see, it kind of looks like I may not be able to do all of it at once. So let me try that again. I'm going to do, I'll do, it's limiting how much I can cut and paste into chat. So here's the first 4, and then I'll drop in the last 3 as well. And we're going to walk through them kind of quickly. So the first one is, I think there's an opportunity whenever there's a really low cost of error or failure. Now, over time, that will should in theory change, because we should have more confidence. Kyle shouldn't be saying, I wonder if this is going to work, right? I mean, when you type it in, it should just work. But right now, because it's new, applications that are viable probably have a low cost of error or failure. And so the one that I thought was really interesting, and I think there was a Wired article about this, was how an early application of AI was likely to be phishing emails, spam and phishing emails. Why? Well, because this is a volume game, right? I mean, you set up a system that's going to send out 1 billion of the damn things, and if 4 of them get clicks, you win, right? So there's probably some really interesting opportunities to think about where in economic context, there's a really low cost of being wrong or having the effort be completely ignored or failed. So that's the first one. The second one is sort of a link to that, which is where there's relatively easy oversight. So again, another interesting area is in the space of coding. There was a great article that I read which suggested that the irony of AI was that one of the jobs that it might take over very quickly was actually the engineers who wrote the code for the AI in the first place. But there's a reason that that's possible, okay? It's not just because it's ironic. It's because if you have generative AI generating code, that can be put through an interface where the compiler quickly identifies where something is not right, or the output of the code you can compare very quickly against what you were expecting and say, well, that didn't work. Now we have to go back and do it. And so you're effectively having a mechanism where someone can easily see where it didn't work, right? So even if the cost of failure might be higher eventually, there's a intervention mechanism that may be relatively easy. The third one is obviously one that's being talked about here, which is a learning model based on large data sets, right? And this is obviously, you know, whether we want to talk about DALL-E or whatever, these kinds of things, but it gets more interesting. We're already seeing it in things like obviously chatbot, customer support, right? Because you've built off of this large set of interactions that's already there, and you kind of know what people are looking for. And the example of the maintenance AI system is basically you know, because we know 98% of the time what people are doing, and then we know roughly what they're doing wrong. It also has clear implications for things like cyber intrusion detection, where you've got like 1 terabyte of data being generated on a daily basis at an organization. And realistically, as the model identifies where things are going wrong, it effectively can predict those going forward. So anything where you've got a really big data set and where your outcomes are driven by how well you can look at it and how quickly, clearly there's going to be opportunities there. Another one is where you have really limited and mediated human engagement. So I know Cindy was talking about being in the insurance space. This is one that I'm actually fairly engaged with. Something like auto claims support, or even something like helping quote auto insurance, where your customers don't expect to have a lot of human engagement. They know there's a limited number of options, and the systems are fairly straightforward. And in contrast with historical situations where, for example, people had insurance agents, many people don't want that anymore, and they're comfortable with the idea of fully mediated interactions. Another one is actually was described here, so I pulled in the example that Kyle provided. This concept of intermediation of systems, the simplification of the complex. And I love this comparison of the Copilot versus Clippy. I remember Clippy too. I always thought that was spectacular. And part of what's interesting about this, which I want to emphasize building on what Kyle pointed out, is there's a little bit of there is a sort of an important difference here, right? So part of what was so terrible about Clippy was it tried to tell you what it thought you should do, right? And some of the things with Clippy were interesting. Like if you typed in, cut and paste, it would, take you up to the menus and it would kind of highlight the right thing. But half the time you were typing in Word and Clippy would pop up and say, oh, you meant this. And you're like, I'll get off the damn screen. And so, part of this is recognizing where, especially now, that distinction between what they want you to do versus you're telling them what it is you're trying to accomplish. A sixth one, from my perspective, is what I like to call a high delta over human time. So there are a certain number of activities in the work environment that are time consuming and high value at the same time. And one of my favorite examples of this, which we aren't seeing yet, but I think is coming very, very soon, is case summarization for paralegals, right? So here is a job that is already lower cost than the lawyers, but it's lower cost because they're expected to go through and review all these extensive cases, summarize what was learned out of them. Well, let's be realistic. That's exactly what generative AI should be capable of doing. And so where there's a really high delta because it's so time consuming for someone to read even 10 cases or 20 cases, but AI can read 1,000 cases in seconds and quickly tell you what the key points were. And then finally, the last one's a little more subtle. It's this idea of a relative cost advantage compared to the overall process. And so this one requires stepping back to think about how money's being spent. So for example, in the United States, the average cost to bring a drug to market is just about $2 billion. So in that context, where a pharmaceutical company knows it's committing to a 10-figure investment in order to get the drug to market, it will make sense to put money into things around optimization, even if they're expensive, right? And so we're already seeing this with the, I've forgotten if it's DeepMind or with the molecule modeling system.
AlphaFold.
Yes, and so these are going to be expensive to run, but they're lower cost compared to screwing it up at the late stage of clinical trials. So again, that's a trickier one, right? Because there it's not going to be, there has to be some analysis around how the organization is using it and how big the actual, capital investment actually is. So I think that, and I don't think that this is extensive. Like, I don't think my 7 items are everything. I'm sure we could, this group could come up with another 5 or 10 or 20 or whatever. And some of these I'm sure need to be, massaged and all. But I think this is a good starting point for like thinking about under what circumstances, rather than a specific application. And I know I provided examples, but just to provide examples, but what are the circumstances in which we're really likely to see this stuff get adopted? So from there, you might ask, okay, well, if that's the case, where are the ones that we are not going to see? So I'll put those into the chat, the kinds of things that I thought about. I'll put those into the chat box now so you can see where I'm thinking about there. So I think that especially for the near term, 3 years, 5 years, maybe a little longer. I don't want to get into an argument about when the singularity is going to happen and all that kind of crap. So let's keep this near term. We're not going to see AI inroads in areas that have these very specific factors associated with them. So for example, if there is a human life on the line, you're going to see a lot of reticence. And the irony here is that our original true AI villain, the HAL 9000, that is not going to happen anytime soon. We are not going to see NASA or any of the major space agencies put an AI in charge of a space mission. That is not going to happen. And I mean, and that's sort of the funny thing is that it was a brilliant movie making, but in hindsight, it was exactly wrong. We're not going to see it where there's really high liability. I'm an aeronautical engineer by training. There is no doubt in my mind that AI systems are almost, I believe strongly, are more capable of landing planes than humans are. Landing a plane is not like driving a car. There's no cross traffic. There are no pedestrians. you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff, right? There's landing lights, there's a radar signal, you know exactly how high you are off the ground, you know the wind speed, you know the shear, you know the weight of the plane, you know all that stuff. There's no doubt in my mind. And yet we have pilots, 2 pilots usually in the front of the plane all the time. And that's just because of liability. That's just the hard reality of it. Or for example, a chief financial officer at a large organization. I have been CFO 4 times. A lot of what I do as CFO could be automated, but we're not going to see that because there's an understanding that the CFO is serving in a personal liability position. Ethics, whenever ethics and morality is going to get involved, and we've now seen this with the autonomous cars, but on the healthcare side, we're seeing it in terms of diagnosis, right? So there's a lot of AI tools out there that are much better at identifying things like tumors, but they're not allowed to diagnose cancer. Only the physician using the imaging and the tool as a complement can actually diagnose it. Or which treatment modality should we use? Or even during surgery, how do we make a decision when we come up with something unexpected? When there's an organized institution, and we can get into arguments about this one way or the other, but for example, could AI be used extensively for teaching middle schoolers? I think the answer is yes. Are we going to see it anytime soon? I think the answer is no. And that's because of unions. And I loved my middle school. I loved my teachers, and I think there's a lot that they bring to the table. But this is an example of where you're going to see things lag because there's an institution that's going to have a lot of impact. And then finally, this is the unfortunate part. This is the downer, is when you have unattractive markets or customers. So my classic example of this is water in rural Bangladesh. Yes, I agree, Becky. For example, we know that there are 100 million people in rural Bangladesh who do not have access to drinkable water on a day-to-day basis. And we also know that there are technologies that could help them. And we know that there would be ways to optimize water or land use that would also significantly help them. The problem is nobody's going to pay for that. And so these become unattractive. These are effectively unattractive markets and customers. Why? Because the monthly wage in rural Bangladesh is $160 a month, right? So there's no money to pay to bring these kinds of things to bear. And that's depressing and worrying, but there's no way around that, right? There's just no mechanism to resolve those kinds of things. So what does all of this mean? Okay, so here are my implications, and I'm going to shut up. I think that there are a couple different implications that you can consider if you're trying to think about where the opportunities are or the impact that all of this is going to have. So the first one is kind of a pitch, is almost a pitch for my book. I think that finding the opportunities is as much or more about the model than it is about the technology. I mean, I'm a huge fan of technology. I've launched multiple tech ventures. I've been in the tech sector, most of my career. But the reality is that technologies are not the actual solution, right? The technologies are a mechanism, and there has to be a model. And I can talk to you. We can talk more about that if that needs to be addressed. I personally am very skeptical about things like AI consciousness, subconsciousness. Is the AI really learning? I'm happy to chat about the hard problem of consciousness, the aboutness issue. I don't think, but what I'm not skeptical about is generative iteration, right? So like the idea that these systems are capable of in some ways modifying themselves and being more capable over time. And in those situations, there's the potential of completely unexpected solutions, right? But the reality is that's unpredictable. Like we can't predict something that we can't predict, right? It's that unknown side of things. And so I think that this is mostly a waste of time to think about. Or it's fun to talk about and we should have a beer and then we should put it aside and say, okay, but let's talk about the business side of it and make sure that we understand why on earth people are going to actually use it. I also think that there's a key difference between application-specific solutions and what I like to call foundational or platform solutions, right? So clearly the large language models are platform solutions, right? They're not intended to do just one thing. They're an underlying mechanism for doing a lot of things. And that makes them really interesting. But as was pointed out before I started talking, nobody's making money on them yet, right? Because they were massively expensive to generate and they're expensive to maintain, and nobody knows exactly how to use these economically. Versus really application-specific solutions, maybe that operate on top of the large language models or on broad neural networks that do make money, right? So chatbot technology makes money. Stockfish, the chess engine, actually does not make money because it's open source. But in theory, if they wanted to, they could charge money for it, and it's quite possible they could make money off it. So if you want to think about all this stuff, and if you actually want to approach this not just from how do I use this cool technology, or even what technology could this problem solve? I think if you're going to look for opportunities, you got to step back and do it the other way. You have to say, where are the problems that need to be solved that are attractive in terms of what AI, generative AI, is actually good at in the first place? And how big, how scalable is that solution? And if you can do that, then the odds are that you'll be able to think through what are the pieces of the business model that actually make this work, what's required, what does the customer actually need? And from there, in theory, you should be able to kind of step back and come up with some kind of, AI mechanism or tool that would actually work. So that's all I want. That's what I wanted to say. I took a few more minutes than I meant. I apologize. But what I hope is that it's giving you a framework for thinking about this, right? Rather than just kind of like, oh, this is cool, let's use it. And this is what the book was trying to do as well, was to step back and say, there is a framework for assessing all this stuff, and then hopefully coming up with something that's economically viable. And I'm happy to chat about social good and the rich-poor gap, climate change. All that stuff needs to be addressed. Unfortunately, most of us live under Western capitalism, and Western capitalism as an institution has very specific rules and very specific mechanisms for things like funding. And if you're going to live in that system, then even if you want to accomplish good, you're going to have to do it via a mechanism that actually also generates revenue, which is the hard, sad, and depressing part of all of this. But I think that we don't do ourselves any good by fooling ourselves about it. So I'm going to stop there. I saw people put up the some of the website information, the book, and so on and so forth. That's awesome. I'll put my LinkedIn into chat as well if you'd like to be connected for whatever reason. And I will turn it back over to Kyle and Leah. Thanks for tolerating all that.
Great. Tolerating is not the right word at all. That was absolutely incredible. So first of all, thank you. Love your energy, love your brain. If that's sort of the stuff you kick out, just having a couple of beers, thinking about stuff, I want to hang out with you because absolutely wild. So if you've got questions either here or online, raise your hand and we'll just go back and forth between online here in Denver. Let me tee up a question for you, because to your point, we're probably deeply in and probably accelerating into a hype cycle that's just insane. So everyone's going to be leading with, we need AI, and getting back to why do you need it? What are you trying to accomplish? I think that as a core message is really important. But here's a question I'd love you to kick off with is, even if I take your framework and I say, okay, I'm going to go do this, here's a problem to solve. There's two things that feel like they muck up the works for me that I'd love for you to talk about. One is the technology is changing so fast that, and we kind of joked earlier, just assume that anything you build this week is going to be obsolete next week. So that's a part of it, things changing really quickly. But there's also, there was this Google leak a couple of weeks ago, or 10 days or so ago, that was called "We Have No Moat," and it was talking about the fact that these open source large language models are getting as good as these really expensive models. And I think that similarly, anyone that comes up with a brilliant business idea, you're going to be able to knock that off, essentially overnight if you wanted to do that. So what are your thoughts about how you entrepreneur in an environment where there's that much uncertainty for protecting the solution that you've created?
It's a great question, and I'll start with my 3 favorite words, which are I don't know. Here's some thoughts, maybe some opinions and guesswork. Yeah, there's no question that the tech is changing fast and will continue to change fast. The only caution I have about that is that's exactly what everybody has said every 5 to 10 years for the last 100 years. And I do get that, you know, we feel like this is substantively different. And even in the book, we talked about the idea that, you know, a teenager in Asia can get 100 million customers in, you know, 24 hours because of, you know, networked communication and all that kind of stuff. But you know, what's interesting is that what doesn't change quite as quickly are the use cases. The use cases and people's preferences, and interestingly, people don't like change. I mean, this group is probably a little more embracing of change and enthusiasm than the average population. During the .com boom, this is what people were saying, like, oh, well, it's so stupid. You launch a website, you launch a service, and then 2 days later, there's 20 of them out there, right? Yeah. And the answer is, well, yeah, I mean, that's the nature of an open market. That's the nature of Western capitalism. And yet we see over time things fall out. And again, it's not usually based solely on the technology, right? It's based on how well did you understand the actual use case that people have? How is it that they make decisions about what they purchase? And I get it that there's a concern that the advantage, that technical advantage, may not seem to last as long. But that fundamentally isn't how most businesses win anyway. Businesses win and organizations win by building the relationship with the customer, right? And I mean, because you can, I mean, I'll give you a dumb example. I give blood at the Red Cross. Could I go across the street to the plasma center? Yes. Would I actually make money off of it then? Yes, I would. And they're my bodily fluids, so maybe I should be the one making, you know, money off it. And is the Red Cross the most efficient organization? No. I mean, there's all sorts of things that they could do better. And yet I go back to them pretty much. I'm headed there this Friday to give blood yet again. And that's because at this point I have trust in the organization. I believe in what they do. They have found ways to kind of, you know, it's not just transactional. I don't just go there, lay in a chair, have a needle injected in my arm, have blood taken out, and then that's the end of it. A couple of weeks later, I get an email from them thanking me, telling me which hospital the blood was sent to. So I totally get it. I totally get it that with the rapid change, maintaining a first mover advantage will be hard, if not impossible. But first mover advantage has almost never conferred long-term competitive advantage anyway. Apple didn't launch the first MP3 player. Apple didn't launch the first tablet. Apple didn't launch the first smartphone. And Apple didn't launch the first legal music streaming service. But, you know, they won all 4 of them, and they dominate all 4 of them on a global basis today. And so there is something more to it than just the next set of features, the next tech advance. That's my instinct. That's the, you know, so I don't have a definitive answer for you, but I think there's more to it than just the tech advantage.
That's great. Any other questions? Any questions here in the room? Yeah.
Yeah. So first off, I completely agree with you. I come from an entrepreneurship background, Wichita State Center for Entrepreneurship there. You always have to kind of solve a problem, and the cool thing is cool, but it doesn't last. People's, you know, appetite changes. But I think one question I wanted to ask is as you have experienced in kind of user behavior or customer behavior and kind of those insights, how do you see the shift in the consumer base? As far as we go from, I think we're getting into more of a micro life subscription model of how we consume products is that we're almost building our personal tech stacks and getting subscription fees, but also how goods are marketed to people. That's been outsourced recently to influencers and a new generation. And how does that affect the acquiring of customer bases and customer loyalty when that customer base is loyal to the influencer, not necessarily the customer or the business?
Yeah. So that definitely I can say I don't know too. I don't do marketing. I'm, you know, my tech businesses have all been in biotech. So even when they had, you know, even when they weren't tools, even when they were ultimately therapeutics, we never had the interaction with the actual end users. So I definitely do not know the space around influencers. I mean, I see it. I'm also, you might be interested to know, very much a laggard when it comes to certain things. So I only got my first smartphone 5 years ago, and I still only have 10 apps on it, which I actually, and I don't have my data on my phone. And so some of that is because I have issues with privacy. I'm also a little, you know, different about, you know, how I use my phone. Like I don't believe in using my phone. So it's a phone, I text, but I don't use it for almost anything else. So I am exactly the wrong person to ask some of that stuff to. And I definitely am not an expert on the marketing side of it. So I'm literally going to beg off that one. I just flat out don't know.
No worries.
No worries. Yeah, looks like we have a question here online. Cindy, you.
Yes, so I just want to make a point that I totally agree with you, Adam. I used to work in a life insurance company, and I saw that they're still using the process that they have been using for 50 years, and there's a huge organizational inertia that's employees doesn't want to change, organization doesn't want to change, and the client or the customers also do not want to change. But I only saw it in a negative way before, but after listening to your words, and I actually found that you can use it in your favor if you want to. So I want to thank you for your insights.
Well, thanks. Yes, if you've spent some time in the insurance space, then you know inertia. And I have been doing innovation training with insurance companies, and many of them are recognizing this challenge around they've operated in certain ways. The world is changing. Some of the customer preference issues that were asked about, that's exactly what they're trying to figure out. Like they have had longstanding relationships with clients and customers, but the younger generations aren't interested in that. Or they only want a transactional relationship. They do want to see insurance as a pure, simple subscription that you sign into and you don't touch and you don't have to think about. So yeah, and just so we're clear, insurance companies fear what's coming, and the company they fear the most is Amazon, right? And the reason they fear Amazon is because Amazon has all your data. Amazon knows what you buy. They know how you behave. They know how you spend your day. And if you know how someone spends their day, you can write insurance packages for them more effectively than the insurance company can do, right? Because they know, well, you bought these 3 products in the last month. I kind of suggest that you're out to do this particular activity, and that's a risky activity. So we're gonna change your risk premium, or we're not gonna sell you insurance. So the insurance companies are aware that the wealth of personal data is going to impact that relationship, and they have not solved that problem yet. Now, Amazon hasn't officially moved into insurance yet. But it is telling that every insurance company I talk to says that their current biggest fear right now is Amazon. It's not their competitors. It's not, financial companies. It's Amazon. So yeah, so this is really interesting stuff. Thanks, Cindy.
And thanks, Cindy. I have a question for you, and I don't know that it's completely or fully formed, but you had spoken about where you're less likely to see AI in business, and one of the things that you had mentioned was for ethics and morality. But to me, it seems like we're on a crash course straight with, seeing AI in ethics and morality. And you spoke a little bit about how, companies want to build the relationship with the customer. And I see AI being used in that way, even as you just mentioned with Amazon and their predictive analytics. And so I'm wondering if maybe you can expand what you mean that we're less likely to see AI in ethics and morality.
Well, so yeah, so thank you. It's a great clarification question. So I think the autonomous car thing is arguably the best obvious big example of that right now, where personally, as I saw Google and Waymo moving forward with autonomous vehicles, I like a lot of people thought it was coming really, really fast. There's just no question that a learning system with 1 billion miles and familiarity with every intersection and all this kind of stuff, more sense input, radar, visual, whatever it happens to be, there's no reason that it shouldn't be able to drive more safely than a human. I mean, where things fell down was, as you probably remember, one, the complexity of situations turned out to be interesting and not as easily solved as they expected. But then two, this issue around ultimately the system's going to have to make ethics decisions. I've arrived at the intersection. Something happened in an unexpected way. A car ran a red, which I couldn't have predicted. And so as the AI, I'm still going at 25 miles an hour. I only have two choices. I can either hit the car or I can turn really, really fast and hit this pedestrian. Okay. And that's an ethics question, right? And that has to be coded into the system. And that was where the Waymo and the others ran into trouble, because people began asking, how are you going to make those decisions? And having to codify that is not a nice thing to do, right? I mean, we pretend like, oh, well, we don't have to worry about that when we're driving. Well, you do, we just don't admit it, right? We don't talk about it. But now that it's a computer making those decisions are being made explicitly in the code by people in Palo Alto or in Cupertino or whatever it happens to be. And that makes people unhappy. They don't like the idea that the person who's responsible for the ethical decisions is not the people involved in the situation. And that's where I suspect we're going to see hesitancy to bring AI to bear, is in situations where we're expecting it, we want to pretend there's not ethical issues involved right up until the point that it becomes clear that the AI is going to make ethical decisions for us. And I think that any situation in which that's the case, there will be huge pushback. And partly that's because I missed this the first time through, right? It just flat out didn't occur to me. I thought by 2020 we would have 50% autonomous vehicles on the road, because I couldn't believe that with the amount of accumulative data that the ML systems wouldn't be better drivers. I suspect they are better drivers.
Yeah.
But we haven't solved these problems yet. So does that clarify where my thinking is, Ken? Is that helpful?
I think so, yeah. And maybe just a quick follow-up question. I'm wondering if you think that this is because of ethics and morality, or because of liability.
I think they both play in. Liability, I think they both play into it. I think there are, I suspect from the institutional side, the ethics and morality is the real issue. Google, Waymo, and Uber, and any of these other organizations are capable of sorting out the liability problem. First of all, they have nearly infinite amounts of money anyway, so they could probably self-insure for the liability. It's the question of sort of corporate liability around the ethics, right? So your grandma's walking through the intersection, the AI is about to run into a car, it notices that there are 5 people in the car, 2 of whom are children, and so it swerves and hits your grandma. Right? So now who's responsible for her death? Well, technically it was the coders in Cupertino who instructed and taught the AI and gave it an algorithm, a heuristic that said, in these scenarios, here's how you weight people's lives, right? Jeff, I think, made the joke you base on people's prior experience. Maybe they have a criminal record, whatever it happens to be, right? We're right into Fahrenheit 451 in 1984 at that point. Yeah, and I'm not surprised Kyle is commenting there's probably, you know, potentially other states like China maybe incorporating this already. So I think the liability is a solvable problem on the whole, but I think the ethics one is when we don't, at the moment, we don't know how to solve it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions over there, Kyle?
Anyone in the room here?
I have a question. So since user experience and, you know, how users act, what they're willing to pay for is so important, do you have any tips for how we might do better user research, or is that out of your domain?
No, I mean, I think it's right in the domain of what we know about how entrepreneurs succeed, right? So, and if you're looking to, if any of you are sort of in the, you know, thinking about pursuing opportunities, I highly recommend The Lean Startup, the book by Eric Race. The bottom line is that market research, surveys, all that kind of stuff is less and less effective. I mean, you'd think it would be more effective. We have access to massive amounts of data. We have new ways to analyze the data, all that kind of stuff. The problem is that people, you know, one, they lie, two, they're unreliable. There's a million cognitive biases at play. And so when we're teaching entrepreneurship, we tell our students, and I mentor entrepreneurs, I'm like, you need to use this lean startup approach of where you get something in front of the target customer as fast as you absolutely can, so that they can react to it and you can observe it. And if you can't do that, then what you need to do as a backup is you need to find a way to observe what they're doing now. Don't ask them what they want in the future. That's a guarantee of getting a crappy answer. The best thing is to put something in front of them and see what they do. The second best thing is to go observe what they're doing now and find out what's not working for them. But to my knowledge and in my experience, we don't have better solutions to that, because the market research, the surveys, focus groups, all that stuff sounds good, but it's just not as reliable as we'd like to think it is.
I actually heard, I was talking to someone yesterday, I think, that was talking about market research, and they've got a plan to go to market researchers and say, hey, there's a new way to do this. And because of the inertia, market research is like, no, we've got it. Like, you know, we've got a two-way mirror. We're fine. We don't need your fancy, you know, action-based tools. So it's going to be interesting. I did some work with a market research group out of Toronto that's actually beginning to move in this direction, but they're using it as a complement, right? They don't want to give up the surveying. They don't want to give up the focus groups. And that's because they're lucrative, right? I mean, so again, this is the economic, and customers are willing to pay for it. You know, companies like Procter & Gamble are doing lean startup kinds of experiments, but they're doing it along with the traditional market surveys and the research and the focus groups because they're comfortable with it, and you can't get in trouble if that goes wrong. You say, well, we did it. We did 20 focus groups. I don't know why nobody liked New Coke. I don't know how that happened, right? So, yeah.
And it looks like we have one last question here online. Eric, center.
This is going to sound like a snarky comment, but I think it's really important. Just Adam, you said a minute ago, the problem with surveys and people is that they lie and they're unreliable. That has been my experience over and over with AI so far. I'm not seeing proof that that's going away anytime soon. And like Google wouldn't roll theirs out, right? Because they knew, oh, it's a pathological liar. And so now their hand was forced, but nobody has solved this. And I'm not seeing when the solutions are going to come. So we might exist. I think we have to keep an open mind to the idea that AI may never be reliable or honest.
like people. I just think it's possible.
It's a fascinating suggestion, Eric. I'm totally not able to sort of provide any reassurance one way or the other on that. That's, pretty far out of, that's like a really deep intersection between coding, ethics, and philosophy, and maybe like hovering over all of that, a certain amount of religion. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting question. Like, what would define reliability for an AI? Like, what kind of scoring would we use in order to understand whether an AI, is Bard more reliable than ChatGPT, in maybe in certain topics? And you can almost imagine like an academic system, right? I mean, based almost on, something similar to PageRank, right? In the citation system of how did people respond to this? I don't want to suggest we live in a post-truth world, because I do hold out hope for humanity. But yes, that is one of my big concerns as well, Eric. So I really like that you brought that up.
Great. Well, Adam, thank you so much. Let's do a well-earned golf clap here. It's a tradition here. That was absolutely awesome. You sort of set this off with, I don't know anything about AI, but I really think what you talked about is super critical to what we're all trying to figure out here. Because all of what we're doing, we're trying to figure it out in the context of what we do professionally and personally. And so I tremendously appreciate you being here and just sharing so generously. It was absolutely awesome to have you here. So thank you, Adam.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. And I think that you really raised a good point that, like, why are we doing any of it? It's just AI is just a tool. What's the problem we're trying to solve? That's a huge takeaway. And I'm really grateful that you explained it that way. So thank you for being here. Yeah.
Terrific. All right, Leah, this was awesome. Thank you. Good to see you once again.
Awesome. Yes. Another great salon. Thank you everyone for being here and for all of your wisdom and insight and showing up. I want to remind everyone to check into the Discord, find us on LinkedIn, connect with each other, ask lots of questions, stay connected.
Yep. And here in Denver, if you want to, we're hanging out at Zeppelin Station after this because, why not? Go hang out, talk AI. We can figure out how to prove Eric wrong. These things are going to be factual, man. Damn it. I do think there's going to be an entire industry that works at solving that problem. And I also think that use case is super important, that some use cases, that source of truth may be critical, others maybe not so much. But anyway, absolutely fascinating. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Great to see you all. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Take care, everybody.
I think the problem is going to be
Part of what makes somebody intelligent is the ability to lie.